All right, let's dive into this Kendrick Lamar thing. Why is everyone talking about him?
Well, it's more than just the music, you know?
Yeah, it feels like a whole cultural shift is happening,
It
right?
really does.
So we're going to break it all down today. We're using this discussion from the Joe Budden TV crew on YouTube as our source.
Oh, yeah, they had a lot to say.
They were breaking down all of Kendrick's record-breaking Spotify numbers and what those numbers mean for hip-hop as a whole.
It's a good case study. Like how one artist's achievements can spark a bigger conversation about where an entire genre is going.
Right, exactly. Okay, but first, the facts. Kendrick is officially the first rapper ever to hit 100 million monthly listeners on Spotify.
Huge.
That's insane. Oh, and he also has count 'em, three albums in the Billboard Top 10 at the same time.
Yeah, that's like next level.
A level of dominance we haven't seen in a while.
You know, it's wild.
Yeah.
Because in today's world, music is literally everywhere. Like the expert on the Joe Budden show said, these streaming numbers, it's not just about sales anymore. It's about reaching a global audience day after day.
Yeah, Kendrick's music.
It's connecting with millions of people all over the planet.
I think that speaks volumes about his impact, you know? It's
Like,
he's transcended borders, right?
Mhm.
But speaking of impact, the Joe Budden crew had this really interesting debate about how different regions are reacting to Kendrick's success.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They called it the act like you've been here before
Yeah.
debate. I thought that was clever.
They did too. That phrase, it comes from sports, right? Like
Yeah.
veteran teams. They're expected to celebrate victories with a little more, I don't know, composure.
Show more grace.
Yeah, great.
Like they've been there before, so act like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what the Joe Budden crew was wrestling with.
Yeah.
Is the West Coast excitement about Kendrick's wins, you know? Is it pure excitement?
Hmm.
Or is there a little bit of, we told you so?
I see. It's like they're saying, look what we've produced. The West Coast is on top.
Right.
But the thing is, the Joe Budden crew didn't all agree about this, did they?
No, they didn't.
Joe seemed to think, like, maybe the West Coast should cool it a little. But his co-hosts had different takes. One of them even suggested that maybe New York is holding on a little too tightly to the past. Like, they're feeling left out of the spotlight now.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting. Remember when New York was the center of the hip-hop universe
For so long.
for so long? What we're seeing now is this shift in the balance of power. It's not about geography anymore.
No.
It's about who's pushing the boundaries and connecting with a global audience.
And the Joe Budden crew had this perfect analogy to explain it, didn't they?
They did.
It's like comparing basketball players from different eras. You can't judge someone from the 90s by today's standards. The game's totally different now.
Completely different.
Hip-hop has its own set of rules, but they're always changing.
Absolutely. The path to success looks totally different now. With social media and streaming services, even things like the Super Bowl. All these new platforms are changing how artists connect with their fans.
It's not just about dominating your region anymore. It's about who can use those avenues to reach a wider audience.
Exactly.
And speaking of new avenues, you remember they brought up Lil Wayne's performance on SNL.
Oh, yeah.
He absolutely killed it with that live band.
Killed it.
And people were raving about it, even those who thought he should have been in the Super Bowl halftime show.
I know, right? And that performance actually ties into what we were just talking about. Wayne used a platform like SNL, which is a bit unexpected for a hip-hop artist.
Yeah, it's not the usual route.
No, but it allowed him to reach a whole new audience. It shows that there are so many different paths to success now.
So many paths. And it makes you wonder, if Kendrick represents this new wave in hip-hop, who else is out there ready to make a splash? Who are the rising stars we should be watching?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the answer lies in understanding how the music industry itself is evolving.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, the music industry. It's like a constantly shifting landscape.
It really is. And Joe Budden crew made a good point about platforms like the Super Bowl. Historically, they haven't always embraced hip-hop, have they?
No, not really.
But now we're seeing it take center stage.
Yeah, it's a huge shift. And that visibility, you know, it's a game changer.
For sure.
Think about Kendrick's Super Bowl performance. It basically cemented him as a global icon. It's not just about the music at that point.
Right.
It's about cultural impact and, like, the way he's changing the game.
It's like he's breaking down barriers for other hip-hop artists to reach that level.
Exactly. And that visibility, it has a ripple effect. It makes hip-hop more normal on a larger scale.
More mainstream.
Yeah, more mainstream, more accessible.
Yeah.
It opens doors for new artists. It does. You know, the Joe Budden crew also brought up something else interesting about how Kendrick's success is being celebrated, especially on the West Coast. People were saying things like, talk your shit, run the score up, it's your moment.
That's a pretty bold way to express excitement, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's where we get back to the act like you've been here before debate. Some people, maybe those from the old school, they see that kind of celebrating as, I don't know, a little unsportsmanlike.
Unsportsmanlike.
Like the West Coast is getting a little carried away
Ooh.
with their victory lap.
Right, like they should be more humble.
Yeah, but then others see it as pure excitement, pure pride
Genuine, yeah.
in what Kendrick's accomplished.
It's almost like a generational divide
Hmm.
in how success is viewed and how enthusiasm is expressed.
You got it.
Old guard versus the new school, each with their own perspective.
Definitely.
They even talked about how they weren't really feeling Will Smith's surprise appearance on SNL with that West Coast skit, you remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
They thought it was a little disrespectful. I can see that. It ties into this idea of New York, like clinging to the past.
But like they haven't let go of that top spot.
Right, as if the torch hasn't been passed.
Even though the landscape of hip-hop has clearly shifted.
Oh, it's definitely shifted. It raises questions about who gets to decide what's real hip-hop.
Yeah.
And what's good taste in celebrating success.
What are the rules of engagement?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a reminder that hip-hop is always evolving. Like any art form.
It's constantly redefining itself.
What might have been controversial in the past is now just part of the genre.
Completely. That's what makes this whole conversation so interesting. It challenges us to confront our own biases about hip-hop.
And how it's changed.
Yeah, what's considered classy or authentic is constantly changing too.
It's like we're seeing a cultural shift in real time.
We are.
And it's pretty exciting to witness.
It is. And that brings us back to this deep dive. It's not just about one artist or regional pride.
It's bigger than that.
It's about understanding the forces that are shaping the future of hip-hop.
And its place in the world.
Exactly.
I'm curious, what stood out to you the most in this discussion?
For me, it's realizing that hip-hop is so much more than just music.
Okay.
It's a cultural movement. It's a force for change, a platform for expression.
I like that.
It's about pushing boundaries, challenging things, and sparking those conversations that matter.
I couldn't agree more. And it's amazing to see artists like Kendrick using their platform to inspire others.
It really is. And that's what we'll keep exploring in our next segment. We'll dive into those artists who are ready to make waves, the trends that are shaping the genre,
Yeah.
and the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Yeah, it is exciting to think about the future of hip-hop, you know?
I know.
With all this talent coming up.
From all over.
Yeah, it feels like we're on the verge of something big.
I think you're right. The Joe Budden crew, they were talking about how this whole New York is hip-hop thing, it's just outdated now.
Yeah, they really pushed back on that.
Like some people are stuck in the past. It's classic gatekeeping, right?
Total gatekeeping.
Trying to hold on to something that's not the reality anymore.
They haven't gotten the memo. The music is telling a different story.
A completely different.
Diversity and innovation are leading the way.
Absolutely.
And these artists are pushing boundaries further than ever.
It's true. Think about how Kendrick blends all these different styles into his music. Jazz, funk, spoken word.
It's seamless.
He's not afraid to experiment. He's creating something totally unique.
Taking the best of what came before and giving it a fresh perspective.
Exactly.
It's so exciting to hear.
I think it speaks to the evolving nature of hip-hop. It's dynamic. It thrives on pushing boundaries, reinventing itself.
Always changing. You know, it's interesting how the Joe Budden crew, even with their jokes about regional pride and all that, they still ultimately celebrate Kendrick's artistry and his ability to go beyond those old rivalries.
Yeah, they recognize his impact is bigger than any one city or region.
He's a global force now.
He is.
His music connects with people everywhere. So it brings us back to the question of what's next. Who else is going to make waves? Who's shaping the sound of hip-hop now?
And that's where you, the listener, come in. It's time to dive deeper. Explore new artists. Be open to how this genre is evolving.
Don't get stuck in the past.
Don't just accept those old narratives or hierarchies.
Find the artists who are really pushing things forward.
The innovators, the rule breakers.
The ones who make you say, wow, I've never heard anything like that before.
Keep your ears open, stay curious, and most importantly,
keep the music playing.
This deep dive may be over.
But the journey through the world of hip-hop, it never ends.